Please give a warm welcome to Dr. Dieter Zetsche. Du bleibst dann gleich oben.
Thanks, Kai, and good afternoon or good evening to all of you. I'm very glad to be with you here at this conference and to speak with you or to you about the revolution, a revolution in the automotive industry. Some 200 years ago, the most favorite tools of people going for a revolution was the guillotine. These days, it's somewhat different. It's more likely the internet. And there are many industries which, if they don't adapt fast to the new environment of the internet, are highly threatened, mostly existentially. Take as one example the hair wax industry. Obviously, it doesn't need any explanation. You see, when Kai went to the Silicon Valley, everything changed ever since. I must admit, though, that I, years before that, already dropped hair wax, but for different reasons. So, as I acknowledge that this conference is not a hairstyling conference, I want to focus on autos. You're not surprised, I guess. And I'm very confident to prove with the next photo that Daimler will lead the digital revolution. I guess that Travis was convinced anyway that big corp IT departments would look like that. The point is that this picture has been taken 30 years ago. And it not only proves that we tried to set a trend for moustaches even at that time, but it proves as well that more than 30 years ago, we were running our first autonomous cars. It was a van on the Autobahn, and with the tools we had at that time, we were driving the digital background to have this van successfully and driverless make its way on the Autobahn. So that's how far we're going back in that technology. And once again, that's why we do believe that we are well prepared for the tremendous change which lies ahead of us. And I now want to talk about 3 different cars to make that point. I would like to start with the new E-Class. This is obviously a series production car, and it's available in the showrooms, and it's today almost autonomously driving car. It's the first public, or the first car which got a license in Nevada for full autonomous testing. And the point is that this car, a production car, has no changes on its hardware to do so, and very minor modifications on the software to be fully automated in testing in Nevada. So this car is able to do a lot, much more than it's allowed to do at that point of time on German roads and many other, or almost all other roads as well. It's obviously able to operate semi-autonomously on basically all roads. It can change lanes to pass vehicles autonomously. In critical situations, it can detect these critical situations, and it brakes, it steers autonomously around the obstacles. It is the first car with car-to-X communication, so it can warn other vehicles from any hazardous situations which are around the corner. And you can park it outside of the car with your app, just driving it in the next available parking space or getting it out of it. So how did we get there? Actually, step by step, by always improving our assistance systems, which in the first place are meant to increase the safety of our customers, to prevent accidents from happening. And we did that step by step, and the benefit is that people got used to it. And that's extremely important because many technologies are prevented from execution by lack of trust of people, of customers, of potential customers. One good example is when we go back to the year 1865, when in the UK the Red Flag Act was enacted. This was a new regulation which required road locomotives, as they were called, to adhere to a speed limit which was defined by a man who had to walk ahead of this road locomotive to define the speed as a maximum of walking speed. I think it's pretty important to mention that thereby the Brits invented a regulation for cars before the car was invented. And they did that, that's in light of Brexit, pretty interesting, before Brussels even existed in its current form. So, therefore, it's so important that with the new E-Class, we are able to prepare their general public to build up trust in these autonomous cars. I mean, you all have speed controls, you don't even think about it, to use them to define the speed of your car, even if they are distronic and keep the distance. You are not worried about that because you're used to it. And this will happen with autonomous cars altogether, step by step. The next car I would like to talk about is the F015. This is a fully autonomous car, which we have shown first in Las Vegas 1.5 years ago. And this one is not available in the showroom today, but will be in the not too far future. While we have for 130 years developed the individual mobility as a form of freedom for people, freedom of space to go where they want to go, because of the situation which we had just saw in Travis' presentation, we now want to give people back their time. Today, and we just heard that in principle, the average German driver spends 2.5 years of his life in the car. Some part of that is a lot of fun, but some part of it definitely not. And we want to give this time back to people who are sitting in the car, stuck in these kind of roadblocks we were just seeing on the charts before. And we do that by the fully autonomous car, and on that basis, you can do whatever you want in the car. You can communicate with everybody, do video conferences, just listen to music, sleep, whatever you want. And we are convinced that in the future, space and time are the real luxury goods. And this car is designed to offer as much as possible of these two elements. Now, when we talk about the fully autonomous cars, of course, it's extremely important that they are 100% reliable. And today, we are already there when it comes to normal conditions. So a car like this can, with its sensors, its cameras, its radars, detect, its lasers, all these objects and can interpret and understand them. Blue are the cars, then they see the pedestrians. Obviously, either there's a pedestrian standing on this monument or its statue, but they're pretty close to reality in all of what we are doing, and that's our current car, how we use it. But the same sensors under different conditions have a much tougher time when we are here. So while on the one hand, humans, who 90% of them think that they are better than average in their driving skills, in fact provide 9 of 10 accidents because of their own mistakes. We are very far in preventing these accidents from happening. But in between these accidents, for instance, on German autobahns, people go 7 million kilometers statistically without an accident and do the same good job as the average people do with autonomous car. Is quite a challenge. And that's why we have to, even under those conditions, be perfectly fine and reliable with all of our sensors. The sensors are the senses of the car. As important, of course, is the brain of the car. And that's another very exciting development. For a long period of time, we tried to automate things by adding up thousands of rules, how these things should react in certain situations. And for instance, Google had a program which was based on these rules, which was able in 2 weeks to figure out that in their YouTube videos, most of them showed cats. And they were able to understand this is a cat with all these rules which they got. But meanwhile, we're able, with deep learning, to apply what the brain does, which means connect their synapses in the form that they learn from experience and build on that. That, for instance, this image detection now can work in minutes. When they just see a few cats, they learn that is a cat by looking at the similarities and the differences. And while these neurological systems, as we just saw briefly in the picture before, are very complex to explain, we are simple and clear, meanwhile, how to use and how to apply them. And the picture or the little video you saw before has shown that by now we can, in our cars, have these deep learning algorithms which understand what is a car, what is a tree, and you program that once, and then you go on a street in Berlin or in Shanghai and wherever, and they still understand, even if you drive right or left in Great Britain or somewhere, what is happening, because they don't need the rules, they learn. And that is the important part which happens now with these deep learning algorithms, which across the board enable us to do many unthinkable things now in reality. And this is what will drive autonomous driving to reality in very few years as full autonomous cars. And we have very high skills in this regard. We have hundreds of people in our company who work in this field and to make us, I'm pretty much convinced at that point of time, within the car industry, the leading manufacturer of autonomous car developments. But we know that we are not the only ones working on that, whether it's Google or whether it's Uber, and therefore this is not our benchmark anymore. The rest of the car industry, we see other people challenging us, and that's a good thing because competition ultimately drives progress. I would like to talk about a third car, which is our Car2Go. We have, meanwhile, 1.3 million customers. We have 15,000 vehicles, and we are the world's biggest provider for free-floating car sharing. And for instance, here in Berlin, we will now in July start to add Mercedes cars, so far these are smarts, to these fleets as well to even further grow that business for us. Of course, this is just one element. We have many other aspects which have the overall objective to drive our company, and this is not just our objective, of course, from a car OEM to a mobility provider. Other elements which we use are, for instance, Movil, a system where you just go where from A to B you want to go, and then it offers you all the different transportation modes you can choose from, and different times it takes, different costs it's provided, or you have to pay for, and then you can choose one and click and pay for it, and you go. And it will show you then with the navigation where to find the first, whatever it is, S-Bahn or bus or Car2Go or whatever you are looking for. We have MyTaxi, we have Black Lane, we have a number of things which we pursue in order to learn about these new possibilities. And of course, only when you connect all these dots, you come to a real systematic approach. Now, many people ask for good reason, well, how will you ever earn money with these mobility services? But when you really think about it and think about the future, you better ask the question, how will you, without these services in the future, still make money? Because we think they're essential in the transformation with individual mobility will take to be part of that. And definitely, we want to be at the forefront and want to create this change rather than being changed and then obviously helpless with whatever might happen. We are absolutely convinced that our industry will change dramatically, and definitely Uber is one driving force in this change. And therefore, I was not surprised that when some of the media reported about our meeting here on stage, that they were seeing that as some kind of a fight. Headlines where Travis and Zetsche, the duel. I have to admit, it took me 3 weeks of workout till I was ready for that picture. But in any case, what is this relationship we're having with each other? And of course, we have met many times before. I think the best description was created by Kai when he was talking about frenemies, which is obviously something where some people said to me, friend and enemy in one. We call that marriage in Germany. But so my definition is that Travis and myself, we are competitors, of course, and there might be many areas in the future where we compete with or against each other, but at the same time, we are friends and we are cooperating and talking about things we can do together. And I think that is the best way to win the future, and that is probably the best starting point to enter now into our mutual Q&A with Kai. Thank you very much.